The desert wind carried heat like fire and grit like needles, stinging the skin of anyone who dared stand still too long. Dust Creek's wooden platform groaned beneath the weight of a single locomotive, its iron wheels screeching as it came to a halt. The town was barely a smudge on the map. One saloon with peeling paint, one general store with a leaning sign, and a line of tracks that most conductors forgot existed. Yet on this day, it became the place where fate itself paused. Amanda Whitmore stepped down from the train, her boots polished to a Boston shine, her traveling dress still carrying the faint perfume of the city. The moment her heels touched the boards, dust clung to her hems, swallowing the elegance she had tried to preserve through a week of travel. She held a small brown suitcase close to her chest. Inside it, the letters that had promised her a new beginning, a husband, a home, a future in Creekstone. But as she looked around the barren station, her stomach tightened. No welcoming carriage, no man with flowers or a smile. Only heat, silence, and strangers who barely spared her a glance. She reached into her bag, unfolded the worn envelope, squinting at the blurred ink. The town name seemed smudged, her map torn right where the county lines divided. Creekstone or Dust Creek, which was which? For the first time in her carefully planned journey, Amanda's certainty wavered. Then came a sound, tiny footsteps pounding wood, then the desperate gasp of a child. Amanda turned just as a little girl hurled herself forward, wrapping small arms around her waist. Tear-streaked cheeks pressed into her skirts. "Mama," the girl whispered between sobs. "God finally answered us." Amanda froze, her pulse hammering. Her hand hovered uncertainly before she laid it gently on the girl's trembling shoulders. She opened her mouth to speak, but couldn't. The child's grip was fierce, as if she would vanish if let go. A man's voice cut the air like a whip. "Olivia!" Across the platform strode a tall figure, his boots caked with dust, his shoulders broad beneath a faded blue shirt. His face bore the lines of sun and loss, his jaw tight with both worry and restraint. He slowed as he reached them, his eyes flicking from the child to Amanda. "I'm sorry, ma'am. She gets confused sometimes." Amanda met his gaze, still stunned, the little girl's words echoing in her chest. For the first time in her life, she wasn't sure if she had arrived at the wrong station, or the only station that truly mattered. Shelter with strangers. The platform emptied to wind and echoes, and with the train's final whistle swallowed by the plane, Amanda understood she'd have no choice but to ask for mercy in a town that barely remembered its own name. The man, Randy Cooper, kept a steady hand on his daughter's shoulder, as though the earth itself might tilt and toss her off. He offered his hat's brim and a few plain words. "Wagons tied off behind the feed store. We're half a mile yonder. If you're stranded, you can take supper with us and a roof besides." His eyes held the guarded calm of someone who had learned not to expect kindness from chance. Pride rose in Amanda's throat, but it had never filled a stomach or lit a lamp. She nodded. "I'd be grateful." Olivia's face brightened, relief shining like water in a dry arroyo. She took Amanda's gloved hand with the solemn certainty of a child whose prayers had an address. They rode in a rickety wagon that squeaked like it remembered better days. The mule, Clementine, flicked her ears against flies and trudged steady. Dust Creek opened into a stubborn patchwork of scrub, mesquite, and sunburned earth. Fence lines leaned, cottonwoods gathered like gossipers along a thin creek. Amanda breathed the hot air, the scents of leather, hay, and something faintly sweet, wild primrose if memory served. The Cooper place sat plain on a rise, a house boxed in by weather and time, a stooped barn, a chicken run, and a well with a crank that squealed its opinion of every bucket. Not poverty, just the honest arithmetic of a ranch carved by two hands and kept alive by one. Randy swung down, then lifted Olivia as if she weighed no more than a memory. He offered a steadying palm to Amanda. She hesitated, then took it. His skin was rough, warm, real, inside smelled of coffee baked into the boards and sun-dried linen. A single photograph rested on the mantel, a woman with soft eyes and a tilt to her smile, as though laughter had once lived here. Amanda didn't linger on it. She found the sink, rolled up her sleeves, and asked where to wash. Randy pointed, surprised. "Not a guest who sits easy, are you?" "Not when I can stand usefully," she said. His mouth almost curved. Almost. By dusk, beans simmered low, cornbread cracked at the edges, and Olivia set the tin plates with reverent care. Randy mended a harness at the table's end, thread biting through worn leather with firm, economical pulls. Conversation came in small, careful pieces, like stones placed to ford a stream. Amanda spoke of Boston only when pressed. Randy spoke of weather, fences, and the mule's opinion of thunder. When darkness settled, the plains sang their steady hymn. Coyote at distance, wind in grass, stove ticking itself cooler. Randy lit a lamp and cleared his throat. "Train won't come through till Friday." He didn't meet her eyes. "You're welcome to stay till then." Olivia's fingers slipped into Amanda's, a silent please. Amanda glanced to the mantel, to the woman's eyes, to the careful mending in every corner of this house. "Thank you," she said. The lamp flame steadied, and with it, something unnameable. Outside, the wind shifted, promising weather. Inside, a chair wobbled under Amanda's weight, then settled as Randy set a hand on its back, holding it, and perhaps her, just long enough to keep both from falling. Ghosts of the past. Morning broke hard and bright, the prairie bathed in a pale gold that revealed every crack in the earth and every scar on the buildings that fought to stand against it. Amanda woke to the sound of an axe biting wood in measured rhythm. Each strike landed like punctuation, sharp, final, unavoidable. She rose from the modest guest cot, smoothed her travel dress, and followed the scent of coffee into the kitchen. Olivia was already at the table, humming tunelessly as she buttered a piece of cornbread with more enthusiasm than skill. The child grinned when she saw Amanda. "Papa said I can show you the chickens after breakfast." Amanda smiled, warmed by the simple invitation. Then her eyes wandered to the mantel above the hearth. A photograph rested in a carved wooden frame. The image was faint with age, but the woman's features remained. Soft eyes, hair pinned neatly, lips curved in a tender smile. Amanda knew without asking. "She was called Lily," Olivia said, following Amanda's gaze with the unguarded frankness of a child. "She sang songs I don't remember the words to, but I remember her hands. They were soft, like yours." Amanda's throat tightened. She reached across the table, brushing a stray crumb from Olivia's cheek. "Do you miss her?" "Every day," the girl answered without hesitation. "But Papa says missing someone proves they mattered." The axe outside struck once more, then stopped. Silence pressed against the room like a held breath. Amanda set her cup down and stepped onto the porch. Randy stood there, sweat darkening his shirt, stacking the last of the woodpile. His expression was the same as last night, steady, unreadable, but his eyes flicked to hers, just long enough to reveal something fragile beneath. "I didn't mean to pry," Amanda said softly, gesturing toward the photograph inside. Randy wiped his brow with the back of his hand. "You didn't pry. Folks, look, she deserves to be looked at." He paused, words caught in the space between confession and silence. "Lily died giving birth. Nothing I could do." Amanda's fingers curled against the railing. "I'm sorry." He gave a small nod as though accepting sorrow but refusing pity. "Only woman I ever loved. Thought I'd go to the grave a widower. But—" He let the word drift, unfinished, carried off by the prairie wind. Amanda waited, the hush stretching between them like a taut rope. But Randy turned back to his woodpile, striking another log as if he could split grief the way he split timber. Amanda watched, heart unsettled, sensing that in this house lived not only a man and his daughter, but the quiet ghost of a woman whose absence shaped every breath they took. uneasy belonging. The noon sun leaned heavy across the prairie, flattening shadows into the earth. Amanda gathered her skirts and followed Olivia into the yard, where chores waited like unspoken questions. A basket of apples sat by the porch, their skins dulled from dust. Amanda knelt, pulling a paring knife from her case, and began to peel with practiced steadiness. She welcomed the rhythm. It gave her hands something to do, her heart something to rest against. Randy worked nearby, mending a fence post with quiet determination. Every hammer strike echoed across the dry land. The silence between them was not hostile, but cautious, like neighbors meeting at a boundary line, unsure which way to lean. Amanda's thoughts circled like restless birds. She had come west chasing letters that promised hope, and instead had stumbled into a household brimming with memory and loss. Breaking the quiet, Randy spoke without looking up. "I once wrote a letter to one of those agencies back east. Thought maybe a wife could fill the holler this place holds." He paused, driving the nail deeper into the wood. "But I never sent it." "Couldn't bring myself to." Amanda froze mid-slice, the apple's skin curling into her lap. "What stopped you?" He shrugged, eyes fixed on his work. "Fear, I suppose. Afraid someone would come and I'd fail her. Afraid Olivia would hope too much and be disappointed all over again." Amanda looked down at her hands, at the pale fruit now bare in her palm. She thought of her own letters of promises smudged and broken. Perhaps fear had shaped them both in ways they had yet to admit. That evening, Olivia knelt by her small bed, hands folded, eyes squeezed shut. Amanda lingered unseen at the doorway as the girl whispered her prayer. "Dear God, thank you for sending someone kind. I know she wasn't meant to stop here, but maybe you knew Papa wouldn't ask. So you sent her anyway." Amanda pressed her hand against her chest, breath caught between wonder and ache. The floor creaked, and Randy's shadow lengthened behind her. He didn't speak, only watched his daughter pray, his face a storm he kept locked behind silence. Amanda slipped away into the dim hall, her heart thundering louder than the prairie wind outside. She wasn't meant to belong here, and yet, in a child's whispered prayer, she had already been claimed. Warmth in the small things. The evening meal was humble. Beans simmered until soft, cornbread browned along its edges, and a pot of chicory coffee that tasted more of grit than sweetness. Yet to Amanda, seated at the worn pine table across from Randy and Olivia, it felt heavier than any feast she had ever known. Olivia chattered happily, swinging her legs under the chair, while Randy ate in near silence, his movements deliberate, steady. Amanda noticed details others might have overlooked. The strap on her dress that had slipped from her shoulder the day before was now neatly stitched, the thread so exact it nearly matched the original seam. She hadn't mended it. Her brow lifted, and when her gaze brushed Randy's, he only shrugged. It kept falling. "Thought it might bother you later." When Amanda settled into the rocking chair, she braced for the wobble she'd felt the night before. But the legs stood firm, freshly nailed and sanded. Randy passed by with a quiet nod, not seeking thanks. The realization pressed warm against Amanda's chest. A man who fixed things not with flourishes but with steady hands, as if small repairs were his way of speaking what words could not. During supper, their fingers met by chance as both reached for the water pitcher. The contact lasted only a heartbeat, yet the silence that followed stretched wide, heavy with an unspoken recognition neither dared name. Amanda pulled her hand back quickly, a faint laugh escaping her lips, but the moment lingered, alive in the lamplight. As the plates were cleared, Olivia nestled by the hearth with her doll. Amanda watched the child's lashes flutter in the glow of firelight. The house smelled of wood smoke and bread, its patched walls glowing amber in the lamp's steady flame. She had once believed warmth meant velvet curtains and marble fireplaces trimmed in gold. Now she wasn't so sure. Randy sat opposite, his calloused hands folded, his voice low. "I don't talk much," he admitted, eyes fixed on the flame. Amanda studied him, her voice gentle. "You don't have to." For the first time since stepping off that train, she felt a fragile ease. Warmth, she realized, could live in small things: a mended seam, a chair held steady, the brush of a hand at the table. And in the hush of that night, she wondered if Dust Creek was offering her something grander than all the promises she had once chased. The letter that breaks. The sun had barely crested the horizon when the sound of hooves approached, scattering dust across the Cooper yard. A rider from the neighboring town dismounted, handing Randy a folded envelope sealed in wax. He glanced at Amanda, the weight of unspoken questions in his eyes before offering it to her. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. The handwriting was familiar, the same tidy script that had once filled her with hope. She read it once, twice, then again, as though the words might rearrange themselves into something kinder. They did not. Her intended groom wrote that her delay was too long, her journey uncertain, and the arrangement no longer suited him. No reason offered, no apology, just a cold dismissal across ink and paper. Amanda stood frozen in the doorway, the letter slack in her fingers. Olivia tugged at her skirts, eyes wide. "What's wrong?" Amanda forced a breath, her voice a whisper. "I was not enough for him. He never even met me, and still, I wasn't enough." Randy stepped closer, the floor creaking under his boots. "Amanda!" She shook her head sharply, retreating into the yard. The prairie stretched endless and merciless, the wind tugging her hair loose, her dress whipping around her legs. She pressed the letter to her chest, the edges crumpling under her grip. It wasn't only the loss of a future she mourned, but the cruel confirmation of every doubt she had carried with her from Boston, that she was replaceable, disposable, unwanted. Randy lingered on the porch, hands flexing as though unsure whether to reach for her or let her grieve alone. His silence was not indifference, but hesitation. A man haunted by his own failures, afraid of breaking something already fragile. As twilight fell, Amanda sat on the porch steps, her knees drawn to her chest. Olivia slipped quietly beside her, carrying the half-finished scarf she had been clumsily stitching with yarn. The child pressed it into Amanda's lap. "It's for you," she said softly. "Every mama needs one." Amanda's throat tightened as tears threatened again. She wrapped an arm around Olivia, holding her close. The scarf's crooked threads were uneven, imperfect, yet somehow more precious than any promise written from a man who had never cared. Above them, the prairie sky deepened to indigo, the stars flickering awake. Amanda realized she had lost something that day, but she had also gained something far rarer, a child's faith that she belonged. Rival claim. The heat of midday shimmered off the earth when the sound of carriage wheels broke the stillness. Amanda was in the garden, tugging weeds from between rows of beans, when Olivia's voice rang out from the porch. "Papa, someone's here!" A glossy black buggy rolled to a stop before the house, drawn by two chestnut horses whose coats gleamed even in the dust. From it stepped a tall woman draped in a plum traveling coat, her gloves spotless, her hat an elaborate tower of feathers and lace. Her eyes swept the small homestead with a curl of distaste. "You must be Randall Cooper," she announced, her voice polished sharp as glass. "I am Eleanor Hargrove." Randy descended the porch slowly, his jaw tight. "I didn't send for you." Eleanor's thin smile revealed no warmth. "No, but your sister wrote. Said you were too proud to finish what you started. She thought you needed help managing all this." Her gloved hand gestured toward the humble house, the patched barn, the barren fields. Amanda emerged from the garden, brushing dirt from her skirts. Eleanor's gaze fixed on her at once, narrowing with practiced cruelty. "And you are?" Amanda straightened her shoulders. "Amanda Whitmore." "Ah," Eleanor said with a dry laugh, eyes sweeping Amanda's worn dress. "The help." Olivia rushed to Amanda's side, gripping her hand tightly. Randy's voice cut the air. "She's not the help. She's our guest. Guest? Eleanor arched a brow. That's one word for it. She stepped past them without waiting for permission, her boots clicking against the porch planks. I brought my belongings. Where shall I put them? You came uninvited, Randy said flatly, but his words fell into the space between them like stones dropped into deep water. Amanda felt her cheeks burn. She excused herself, retreating into the house where her small suitcase waited by the corner. Her fingers folded clothes with quiet precision, though her chest was in turmoil. She would not remain where she was unwanted, where her presence could be twisted into scandal or pity. When she descended the stairs, bag in hand, Olivia's eyes filled with panic. "No, don't go," she begged, clutching Amanda's skirts. Amanda knelt, smoothing the child's hair with trembling hands. "Sweetheart, I have to." Her voice was soft, steady, but inside, her heart cracked with each word. Randy stepped forward, but his silence said more than words. Caught between duty and something he dared not yet name. Amanda lifted her bag, turned toward the door, and stepped into the blazing light, her shadow stretching long across the dust. Child's sickness, father's choice. The house felt hollow without Amanda's quiet presence, though her absence had filled every corner. That night, Olivia would not sleep, tossing beneath her quilt, clutching the half-finished scarf Amanda had left behind. By dawn, her small body burned with fever, cheeks flushed crimson, hair damp with sweat. She whimpered for water but would not drink, calling out only one word through her fevered haze. "Mama." Randy sat at her bedside, his large hands useless against the fire consuming his daughter. He dabbed her brow with a damp cloth, his jaw clenched in helpless silence. At the doorway, Eleanor stood with arms folded, her voice cutting cold. "It's a passing sickness. She'll outgrow it. Children are resilient." Randy turned sharply, his eyes burning. "She hasn't slept since Amanda left. She hasn't eaten. She's wasting before my eyes, and you call it passing?" Eleanor sniffed, her lips curling. "You've let her grow too attached to a stranger." "It's unwise. She's not a stranger to her," Randy said, his voice low, breaking. He brushed Olivia's damp curls back, his thumb trembling. "And she's not a stranger to me." Eleanor stepped into the room, her perfume heavy, out of place in the small, worn house. "What you need is stability. A proper wife with standing, with resources. Amanda Whitmore is nothing more than a mistake off a train platform. If you care for your daughter, you'll let go of this fantasy." Randy rose slowly, his frame filling the doorway, his shadow cutting the room in two. His voice was steady, but it carried the weight of steel. "You came here for land, for control. Not once have you asked what Olivia likes, what she dreams, how she laughs. Amanda did. She knelt with her, prayed with her, mended her doll, and braided her hair. She gave her more in a week than you've given her in a lifetime of heirs." Eleanor's face stiffened. "You cannot possibly. You need to leave," Randy interrupted, final as a gavel. "Now." Eleanor's lips parted in disbelief. Her pride wounded more than her heart. "You'd throw away a proper match for a woman who wandered into your yard by mistake?" Randy grabbed his hat, his decision already carved deep. "She may have arrived by mistake, but she's the only thing that's felt right in years. And if I don't bring her back, Olivia won't have the chance to live long enough to call her Mama again." He left before Eleanor could answer, saddling his horse with a speed born of desperation. The sky was split by thunderclouds rolling in from the west, the wind rising like a herald of reckoning. Randy pressed Olivia's scarf into his coat, his jaw set. Each hoofbeat carried the same prayer. Let him reach the station before the whistle blew, the train decision. The station at Dust Creek loomed out of the storm, its timbers rattling under the rising wind. Randy's horse galloped hard, foam flecking its mouth, hooves pounding like a desperate drumbeat. Ahead, a plume of smoke curled skyward, the final train of the week, its whistle screaming as if it mocked him with every passing second. Amanda stood at the edge of the platform, her small brown suitcase at her feet, her hat pulled low against the grit-laden gusts. She looked outward, her expression caught between resignation and sorrow, the way a traveler does when she knows she has no true place to return to. "Amanda!" Randy's voice cracked through the storm. He leapt from his horse before it had fully stopped, boots striking the ground hard. Breathless, chest heaving, he closed the distance in long strides. She turned, startled, her eyes wide. "Randy, what are you doing here?" He held up a trembling hand, words rushing before the train could steal them. "You weren't supposed to be here. You got off at the wrong station. I know that. You stumbled into a life that wasn't yours to fix." His voice faltered, then steadied, raw with urgency. "But I can't let you leave. Not because Olivia needs you, though she does, but because I do." From his coat, he pulled the crooked little scarf Olivia had been stitching, its yarn loose and imperfect, and a pressed wildflower she had tucked inside. He held them out, the wind tugging at his hands. "She made this for you, slept with it under her pillow, got sick crying for you. That child believes you were sent by God himself. And maybe she's right." Amanda stared at the offering, her breath shallow. Her fingers brushed the scarf, and with it came the warmth of Olivia's tiny arms and whispered prayers. Her eyes shimmered with tears that the wind could not dry. The train shrieked again, brakes grinding, wheels sparking as it prepared to depart. Amanda looked from the iron giant to the man before her, the widower with calloused hands who fixed chairs and mended silence with quiet acts of care. The choice pulled at her heart like two wild horses straining opposite ways. Then, with a trembling breath, she stepped back from the edge. She clutched the scarf to her chest, the wildflower pressed against her heart. Randy's shoulders sagged with relief, his eyes misted as the train thundered away without her. Amanda's voice was low, carried on the prairie wind. "I thought I didn't belong anywhere." Randy took a step closer, his voice rough but steady. "You do now." A new family under the oak. Spring softened the harsh lines of Dust Creek, painting the fields with wildflowers and coaxing green from the stubborn soil. At the edge of the Cooperland, beneath an ancient oak that had seen more seasons than any preacher, three figures stood together. No congregation, no choir, no gilded rings passed through generations. Just a man, a woman, and a child binding themselves by choice, not by law. Amanda wore a simple dress, stitched from repurposed linens, seams uneven, hem too short on one side. Olivia had sewn every thread with determination, her small fingers pricked but proud. "It's not perfect," Amanda whispered when she tried it on. Randy's reply had been steady, thick with feeling. "It's perfect because it's yours." Now in the shade of the oak, Randy took Amanda's hands in his own, rough palms cradling hers as though they were the most delicate treasure he had ever known. His voice carried only for her. "I can't fix the world, but I can fix what's mine. I can mend chairs and fences and broken doors, and if you'll let me, I'll mend every part of your heart that was ever told it wasn't enough." Amanda blinked back tears, her voice steady though her chest quivered. "Then I'll let you." Olivia, barefoot in the grass, clutched a basket of petals gathered from the meadow. With a delighted spin, she flung them into the air, laughing as they fluttered down around her new family. She stepped between them, slipping her small hands into theirs. Her face glowed with solemn joy. "You're mine now," she said softly. "Both of you." Randy and Amanda knelt, wrapping her in their arms. For a long moment they remained there, bound together not by accident or convenience, but by love born from need, from prayers whispered in the dark, from the chance of a wrong station turning into the right destiny. Amanda pressed her lips to Olivia's temple, her eyes lifting toward Randy. "We never did get a proper wedding." Randy's smile broke through the lines of his face, warm and sure. "I got the only one I ever wanted." The wind rustled through the oak's leaves, sunlight dappling their faces. Olivia leaned close, her voice a child's prayer turned truth. God didn't answer me late. He answered when it was just right. Amanda's throat tightened as she held them both close. The prairie stretched wide and forgiving around them, and for the first time, she knew she had stepped off the train into the life she was always meant to find.